Alright, that comes off with a 15 millimeter socket ratchet and an 18 millimeter to hold the you hold part of it steady and then you loosen up with the socket. Next is the caliper bracket. Right there, caliper bracket. That one's on tight. A lot of torque on that. Okay, so there's no end to the noise here. My wife's Mercedes has got kind of a loud engine. And anyway, I got the caliper bracket off right there, 21 millimeter. I like to use this torque wrench because it gives me multiple angles. You can also try with a breaker bar, but breaker bars don't give you multiple angles. They give you four positions basically, or well, more than that if you count the positions of the socket. But still, if you got one of those half-inch torque wrenches, use that. Okay, now I gotta take that parking brake off, don't I? Okay. Okay, so right here is your wheel speed sensor connection. Whoops, out of frame right there. And here's your parking brake connection. So take those two off and make sure that the parking brake is off, obviously, or you'll have tension here. There were two long bolts there that go through the knuckle. This is the knuckle into the actually they go into this piece of the parking brake. So I was trying to get it off here. This thing that's like one-way clips, and you have to compress those clips to push it back out. I was having trouble, so I just pulled those two bolts out, and then I can move that all out of the way nicely. Okay, I think I can just pop this parking brake off now. Okay, this parking brake well, the way I got it off was I pulled that little piece out. That's the thing that expands the size of the parking brake with those two little wheels. And once I pulled that out of there, it gave me some room to wiggle this around. However, observe this little clip that holds the parking brake shoe, if you want to call it a parking brake shoe. It holds it in place. It clips there. See that? There. And then it extends out here, and it extends out here. And then the parking brake inside edge is going to go in there. It kind of holds it in place. That's what I mean by that inside edge right there. So just observe this, because you're going to have to put it all back together. Okay, so now you got to take the corner off. I call this the corner or the knuckle. So upper ball joint, lower ball joint, tie rod end, axle nut. Alright, to get the axle nut off, here's a little trick you're going to need to know. It's on very, very tight, like, I don't know, 150 foot-pounds or something. And the way it is right now, it's just going to spin because there's a diff. So what you have to do, you might need another person to help you or not. On the other side, you want to jam it up like that so that can't turn. All right? And have somebody watch it if you need to. And then I use this big breaker bar here. Now it's loose, so I can turn it like that. The size I used for the axle nut is not the actual correct size, but it works. 1 5/16 will work. Oh, trying to get that focused for you. On camera. Anyway, you can see it, can't you? 1 5/16. And then the other 3 are Torx, I think. Okay. Take this tie rod end off first, and then you'll be able to swing the knuckle around to get at the upper and lower ball joints. Break it loose. There's a, well, yours is probably going to be different. This is a special bump steer kit. But break it loose and then put the nut back on and bang on it a little bit, and that'll drop it down. It's like a cone shape. And then you can take the nut the rest of the way off, and that way you haven't damaged any threads. This is a little tool that I use to bust open ball joints. I did a separate video on it. You can look it up. The ball joint, of course, is going to want to turn with the nut. So there's a little place to put an Allen to hold it, to hold the ball joint from spinning, so you can get the nut off. Like that. Okay? The Allen is, what size is it? 5 millimeter metric. The one on the bottom, I like to turn the knuckle as much as I can and get it from the front side. Right there. Open end, 20 millimeter. Or is it 21? 20 or 21? I think it's 21. Yeah, 21. And then you can pop it using that same tool. Okay? Okay, well, it's not very good. Okay, I guess I do have my flash on there. I've just got a lot of backlight. Sorry. The way I got the bottom ball joint apart is I jacked up with a bottle jack underneath the bearing. Jeez, this is really bad. Alright, I jacked up underneath the bearing like that to put some up pressure on it, and the spring has down pressure on it, so I just hammered on it here and here and here and here and jacked a little, hammer, 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 jack, jack, hammer, hammer, and when it pops, you're gonna jump out of your skin because it'll pop really loud. But now you can see, there you can see it's popped loose. I left the nut on there a little bit. Now I can get that off and pull the knuckle off the axle. It might be on there a little tight. I might need to put a little penetrating oil, something on there. So the way I like to do this is I wiggle and jiggle and push and move this upper control arm to pop that ball joint out. Then I've only got the lower, and I've got the axle. Looks like the axle is actually loose, pretty loose. So I might be able to just lift that off and pull it off. Hold on. Okay, here's Froggy's technique right here. For the bottom, I just lifted it up. I didn't have to do anything. I lifted it up. Then the only thing that was holding it was the axle. So I put the nut back on a little bit so I wouldn't ruin these threads by hammering. Then I hammered with a small hammer, tapping, and I'm holding this thing up with my left hand and tapping on this axle with the right hand. Lifting, tapping, PB blaster, penetrating oil. You can see how rusty that is. Sometimes there's a noise that comes from the action of the drivetrain on the little bit of play that's in this. Sometimes you need to lubricate it. You might not need to take it off even. Just take the nut off, lubricate it, and then put the nut back to the torque spec. That's a whole other troubleshooting thing. So my corner's off. I'm gonna have some lunch. I like to lay the knuckle down on the ground like that, and that's a little butterfly impact, but I actually broke it loose with a breaker bar because these got to be pretty tight, and I have to switch these studs out. I've got ARP studs, so I'm going to take these original studs off. mark where the wire comes out. It has to be in the right position. That's your wheel speed sensor. You can knock the studs out by put it up on your vise like that. You have to brace behind it, alright? If you just knock it against something soft, it's not going to come off. So brace behind it, hit it with a hammer, put a lug nut on there to save the threads. There's nothing wrong with them. You don't want to put it down on your bench on this wire. You'll break the wire. Well, I want to tell you, ARP is a good stud. Look at those threads, brand new next to ARP. And I've had them for a few seasons, and I've spun a lot of lug nuts on and off. I always finish with a torque wrench, obviously, just in case somebody would misunderstand me there. This is how I like to put studs in. There's a little bit of lines. You can see them. Those lines need to line up. That's like a groove line. It has to line up with these ridges here. There's not much to line up, but you just have to feel it with your fingers like that. You can just barely feel it. Anyway, line them up. Now I like to take a deep socket on an air gun, a bunch of washers, and a lug nut, and I just pull it on that way. Some other guys will do it some other ways, whatever. Nice and easy. I've heard of guys trying to press them in, and they go in crooked, and it's a big mess. Don't ever try to press them in. Just pull them in like I did. Put some blue Loctite on the 3 bolts that are going back in. Let's see if I can find the torque spec. 95 pound-feet. Hope you had your Wheaties this morning. Alright, going back on. I was able to get the axle and the bottom ball joint kind of at the same time. You kind of get them both started at the same time. Then the top ball joint, you can move the control arm a bit, and you should be able to get that in there. Okay? Well, I apologize a little bit because I started running out of time, so I didn't give you all the little details of putting together, you know, the caliper bracket, the caliper, but you guys should be able to do that because I showed you how it all came apart. I also have several or more other videos that do these individual parts. So it's all back together. There's a new wheel bearing there on that corner. I'm just going to put on the wheels, and I'm going to wrap this up. So, and you know I'm always available in the comments. If you have a question about anything, post it in the comments and I answer them all. Give me a thumbs up or a like. This helps you out. Subscribe more to my channel if you want more from Froggy. And you guys and gals have a great, safe weekend. I will see you later. Froggy out. Bye-bye.